3rd, 2016, our first budget review meeting. Please stand and
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, notice of this meeting was given by way of notice filed with the Star Gazette and/or the Express Times, filed in the Municipal Clerk's Office, and posted in Belvedere Town Hall, 691 Water Street, Belvedere, New Jersey.
roll call, please.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilman Fitzgerald. Councilman McAtoor.
Here.
Councilwoman Myers. Here. Councilman Miller.
Here.
Councilwoman Napolitano. Here. Councilman Tucker.
Here.
Thank you for everybody coming tonight. We're still waiting for Councilman Fitzgerald to get here. We're going to turn this meeting over to John Mooney at this point to give us a recap of. I'm sorry. Okay. Public comment. Sorry.
That's okay. False start.
Full start. Any public comment? No public comment? Go ahead, Mr. Mooney.
Back on. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Everybody should have our preliminary budget. I know it went out in the packet. I received the email that it went out. Just going to go over a couple of points in there, let you know where you stand, and kind of rehash a few things that you might not be familiar with because you do only do this once a year. So I'll give you the whole spiel on the caps. Currently, your budget is within both cap limits. You have an expenditure cap that you have to be below, and you have a tax levy cap that you have to be below. We calculate these caps based on what the state has and where you were last year. A lot goes into that. You are currently $94,000 under your appropriation cap, and you are $262,000 below your tax levy cap. So if you had to raise an item in the budget, you do have a little bit of room. You're not up against either one of those caps. One tax point, or 1 cent on the tax rate, is equivalent to $12,827. Currently, as your budget sits, you are increasing from last year 6.8 cents on the tax rate. So in order to bring that down a penny to 5.8 cents, you would have to cut or raise funds in the amount of $12,827. At this point in the budget, we're using $175,000 of fund balance. Last year at this time, you used $142,000 of fund balance. If we go back and look at where you were last year, prior to the end of the year, your fund balance did go up. You were at approximately $202,000 coming back in from what you used. So overall, your fund balance number looked pretty good. Conservatively, I would hold off on bringing that $175,000 up over the $200,000 level, just because we see what you're bringing in and you're recouping from one year to the next. And if you start using too much, you're going to see a decline in fund balance over time. Last year, we had a couple of items that were bigger that helped you out with your fund balance. Construction code fees were through the roof. It was almost double what you had anticipated as a revenue. 2016, we're also seeing in our budget that we're not using the money from sewer. Last year, you used $40,000 from sewer to help get down to a zero increase. Right now, that is not in the budget. I did not put it in there because I know it was a one-time thing that last year we talked about. We only wanted to bring in as a one-time deal. An average home assessed in Belvedere is assessed at $122,000. At a 6.8 cent increase, what that means is that average home would see an increase of $83 per year, $85 if you add the library portion of it in, and that would equate to about $7.11 per month. Just wanted to touch on where you're at debt-wise. You're still paying off 2 bond anticipation notes that deal with the refundings that you had in years past. You're gonna see one of them fall off in 2018, well, actually, the last year will be 2018. So you won't see that one in 2019, and the balance that you have to pay annually on that is almost $65,000. And then your last payment on the other bond anticipation note will fall off into 2020. So in 2021, you won't have a payment on that, and that payment's $117,000 a year. For purposes of the budget, we estimated an increase in your school tax of approximately 2%. And we didn't go as high on county tax because we know counties looking to keep their tax rate flat. However, it depends upon your equalization. You may see an increase or a decrease. County works differently when they raise their taxes than municipalities. Municipalities are based on assessed value, counties are based on equalized value. So if your town goes higher than other towns, even if they're flat, you're still going to pay a portion, a bigger portion than maybe your neighbor will. So that's where we stand with the budget, and I'm here for any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Mooney? No questions?
Actually, I do have some
Sure.
questions. I'm sure I'll have more as I
No, go ahead.
look. I only got this yesterday, so I apologize.
Okay.
One thing I noticed, it says that here under local tax, it shows the two rates, 2016, 2015. I'm looking around the middle of the first
Right.
page, the summary. And so the increase is, like you said, 6.8 cents.
Correct.
Then it says percentage increase 4.25. So what does that percentage mean? Where does that equate to?
It's just to tell you that you're going up from 1.6 cents to 1.66 cents.
Okay, so
So it's
I
a
mean, so
form.
that's the rate, so really, the tax bill is going up. And this is just municipal only, right? So this isn't,
Just
so
municipal.
looking at a household, you're figuring in municipal and school, of course.
Well, I caution you, everything on here for school and county is an estimate
Yes,
because
sure.
it's not ready at this point.
Right, yeah, but the 4.2 is
It's just
municipal.
solely your piece and the library as well. So if
and
you,
library.
so it's almost a 7-cent increase when you factor in the library portion as well.
Okay,
And how the library goes up, their calculation is also based on equalized value. So your equalized value went up a little bit, even though your assessed value came down. So the library will see a little bit of a bump in their contribution this year because it's based on that
oh,
equalized
okay.
value.
Okay, so the $85 hike per average household is municipal only. So
Correct.
if we're estimating at 2%, then it's, well, as far as it's 4, and it's roughly half and half if we're going to just really make it easy, right? Municipal and school appear to be fairly close.
Well, yours is,
Shouldn't ask any
yeah, yours is gonna be a 4%, but you gotta remember that the school collects a lot more money. So 4% on what you had last year is still a lot less than the 2% that the school is going up.
Oh, okay, so what is the ratio roughly between municipal versus school?
Well, you collect for local taxes, you collect $2.1 million.
Mhm,
That's what you ask for taxpayers to help pay for the budget.
right,
School district, you're asking about $3.6 million.
okay.
And then the county is $1.3 million. And again, the county and schools are our estimates at this point.
Okay.
John, if I could.
Yes.
Both Councilman Myers and myself attended the school board meeting last night because they had their proposed budget on the agenda.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure that we went there to get a rough idea of where they were heading. Councilman Myers, would you like to give them a rough idea?
Well, because of the decrease in the evaluation, they were gonna go up the 2 cents.
Okay.
And then their cap allows them 3.9, so they're going up about 6 cents.
Okay.
So they figured on an average home about $74 a year.
Okay. I thought it would be important that I point that out tonight, and again, that was the reason that we went to the meeting last night.
They have a much longer timeline too.
Yes, they do.
The budget's no longer voted on, but they don't have the public hearing for the budget until April, I believe.
So even though they're exceeding the 2% increase, they're not.
I guess that, well, I guess the way it works, the way I understood it, and it really wasn't in a time where we had an opportunity to ask questions, because the value went down, because of the decrease in value, in order to bring it up to level, it was 2 cents. I guess
Okay.
they're allowed to do that. And then,
They have caps just like you have caps.
right, and then the 2% cap would be 3.9%, so
Okay.
it's a total of almost 6 cents.
Okay.
I encourage the public, whenever you can, please try to go to a school board meeting. I think you really need to know what's going on and keep up to date with everything. We indeed did invite the entire school board of education to come to our budget meeting tonight, and we invited them last night. Any other questions for Mr.
No,
Moore?
no.
Okay, I myself got this information yesterday, the same as everybody else. And I'm really just going through it myself. I don't have a lot to add, other than the fact I think we can do better, for sure. That's my opinion. I will ask the question that's asked every year. What is the council's pleasure as far as how much do you think we should be putting on the taxpayer as a burden this year, cent-wise? 1 cent, 2 cents, 3, 5? That'll give you a rough idea on what we're looking at as far as reductions. So if we're at 6.8, 6.9, and you want to be at 3 cents, we have to reduce approximately 36, 37, 38, probably about 38,400 and change, correct?
Correct.
If you want to bring it down to 2 cents, then you're looking at roughly $51,000 more that would need to be removed from this budget.
And how much would that pass on to the household? 2 cents, about 40?
So that's put in 23%. It'd probably bring it down to like 30 some dollars.
If it was 1 cent, you'd be looking at $12 for the year. 2 cents is $24
Okay.
for the year. You make me do quick math like that.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You can use your fingers behind you.
I will also ask council at this time, although you've only had this a short while and you've gone through it just a short while,
I'm sorry, sir.
does council have anything that was missed that should be added on this budget?
Yes. The request for recreation for tennis court maintenance, signage, and things like that, for $3,000 was omitted.
I think we can absorb that through the buildings and grounds. It was budgeted for buildings and grounds.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Other than the reductions that I think we need to take a look at, I did have an added item that I think that the council needs to be mindful of. We were talking about doing research on reevaluation, although we haven't got the cost in yet for that. I'm sure we will before too long, so that may be an added expense. Although I understand it may be an added expense, it may be something that can be broken out over 2 or 3 years, 4 years, correct?
Right, yeah, that approach rather than a revaluation would be reassessments. And that would be done through our municipal assessor. So
Right.
we have to find out from him what his bandwidth is, you know, to see if that's something we can
Well,
If you have a reevaluation, then you're looking at spreading it out. You pass a special emergency for that, you can spread that out over 5 years.
That's correct. Everybody knows there's a significant difference between reassessment and reevaluation.
Right, yeah, well, it would be, the goal would be to do a global reassessment, which would equate to a revaluation, but it would be done in a 3-year, or, you know, whatever year, however timeline we find is feasible, but it would only be done that way if there's a significant cost savings, so that's what we're
Right.
researching now. Now, to answer your first question, if we could try to get the 6.8 cents down to 2 cents, I would feel a lot more comfortable if approaching people with a $24.
I agree 100%.
I think that's, that should be, and even if we go through, we might, there's a lot of things that, in discussion, we'll see what we can do.
Can I get a consensus from the rest of the council where we would be comfortable at? And this is not finding, anybody have a rough idea? Do you want to wait till the next meeting?
Me personally, I mean, I can speak for the police and municipal courts, we can look at that again. I think until we each talk about our own individual, what we're suggesting, I don't know. It's hard to say what number we're going to derive at. But I'm looking at it, like you said, $12,800 per point. I see, Des and I had some conversation today. I think they're doing, they definitely save something.
I agree.
I think we're,
Well, I guess the next step would be, at this point, would be to take a look at your individual lines and take a look at, I know you've only had a day to look at it, but take a look and see. And if anything's standing out to anybody, that's the point of tonight's type meeting. Bring it up, discuss it, why are we at the numbers, where are the numbers coming from, and what's driving the increase. And, if the increases are justified, and you feel that here I am, and a 6.8 cents increase still makes sense because all these numbers are justified, then, I'm not an advocate of going through the roof, but, you have to address the needs of your municipality. Could we squeeze a little more surplus out? We could. I would be cautious to squeeze too much more, but could you take it up a little bit there? Yes. What would you be comfortable with as a council becomes the next question. I know the number 6.8 is big, but now it's time to look at individual lines, take a look at revenues, what are we doing, what can we be doing? We'll go from there.
Any other comments for Mr. Moody? Mr. Fitzgerald, would you like to add anything?
Sorry,
That's
I lost
okay.
track of time.
That's okay. No problem.
I guess where you're at is, you're saying you don't want to go for the 6.8.
That's my opinion. You'll have to ask the rest of the council what their opinions are.
If that's what you're asking me, the 6.8 is a catch-up number. You were 0 last year, and it's catch-up. When you take the numbers as they went up by category, and you take the penny at $13,000, and any line item that has that problem, you end up with like about 13 cents. But it sticks in a couple of spots. It sticks in the police budget, and a little bit in buildings and grounds, a little bit in DPW. But if you take the big number, which is in the police budget, it was behind by $12,000 last year. When you add the specific numbers that happened in that budget line alone, take the $12,000 increase that's mandated by contract and add it to that 12. That gets you to 24. You add a new man who is going to cover the parking lot. He'll generate his own money. I would believe in the parking improvement and the parking income. That's another $15,000. The chief's increase about $3,000. That makes it $640,000. And then the extra week that occurred in the payroll period, they added 25 on top of that, so you get 665. Then it's 5 cents to the contract right then and there. I guess the question really boils down to, because there is no practical playing with the line items to get it. The issue is, how much do you take from surplus? Last year was $411,000.
142,000 came from surplus last year.
I think the number we had talked about, to get it down to 6-something, would require taking $175,000 from the current
Correct.
surplus.
All right, so for the parking, there is a brand new position for that. I guess I wasn't clear on that. So
For the what?
for the parking.
No.
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 Okay, so what's
Not
that 15,000 that would be for a new position for parking?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm just hearing that there isn't a new position for parking, for anyone who's going to police the parking.
Well, Steve Metz's position is a new position as far as the funding is.
Steve Metz's position is an officer that you are able to hire part-time if needed, with no specific job description. So we do not really, let me finish please, we do not know exactly what his salary range or what the cost is going to be. He was used part-time to offset overtime and double time and bringing more expensive officers in at a much higher rate at double time. That's why we were allowed to have that officer here part-time. And there's no benefits or anything else affiliated with it, it's just a part-time position. So we're only guessing at what that $15,000 number is. And while we're on the police department, I'll just give you my understanding of it, and I did review it with Des, and I do agree with Mr. Fitzgerald on some of it, but not all of it. And I'll probably first ask Councilman McAtora, how did you come up to $665,000?
Can I interrupt here?
Yes.
Because you're getting your cart before your
Yes.
horse. First of all, Mr. McAtor did not come up with $665,000. The CFO came up with $665,000.
Okay.
In that number, correct me if I'm wrong, we looked at what was expended last year, the increases in salaries that you have for 16, and the fact that we have a 27th payroll in 2016, which adds $20,000 to that number. So, are you a little high at 665? Yes. You have some wiggle room? Yes.
Okay, so
Good short answer.
now, before I was done,
Sorry.
I would have said the same exact thing with the exception of one issue that I have. We have a retired officer at nearly $84,000 last year that equated into that $600,400. That officer is now gone. We brought in an officer to replace him at $51,000, which brought us a difference in $34,000 right off the bat. Not to mention that officer is not taking benefits when the other officer was taking family benefits at the cost of nearly $18,000. So if we're going to talk nuts to nuts, and we're going to let the public know exactly what's going on, my opinion of it is $665,000. Going up to that point from $600,000, $400,000 is inflated, in my opinion. And all I'm asking for is us to take a look at it. I have no difference of agreement that we have 27 payments this year versus 26, and that equates to roughly $25,000. Have no problem with that. The $12,000 that we went over budget last year in the police department was mainly because that officer left and took all the accrued time cashed in along. So that inflated that number from $600,400 to $612,000 and change. Otherwise, the chief, even at that point, did an excellent job. Probably would have came very close to his original budget of $600,000 plus. So I think we need to make sure that everybody understands all the factors here completely. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Fitzgerald.
There is a difference in the two officers, and that can blend in a little bit. We can take that out of the contract. The benefits is a different line in whole contract altogether, and the whole budget altogether, the give or take of having benefits does not affect this line. So, let's
Correct.
reality.
Correct.
Again,
What you're doing, you're talking about, you ran over $12,000 last year in the police budget. Is it the hard number, right, that affects everything else but the difference between the two officers?
let me back up and correct you right there, because what we did last year is we actually lowered it last year too. So we went from 14 down, from 2015, I believe we went down to 600. It used to be like 620.
Correct.
So we cut it last year,
Right.
and when I saw this number, yeah, the chief and I were a little bit surprised. We talked again today. Can we do better? Absolutely, we think we can. So, you know, I'm sitting here, and I mean, this is our first discussion, but like you said, we all got this packet yesterday. And, you know, we were a little surprised with the number. We had a discussion today about it. So my argument to you is, yeah, I know from the police budget, we can help out.
And then again, the only
I think we
reason-
can. I disagree, the chief disagrees with that number, and, you
I
know,
want everybody to understand that the police department, our year end in 2014 was actually 639,000. And Councilman McAtor is right. We dropped that 639,000 down to 600,400, which I'm not going to argue was tight. No question about it. Actually, Mr. McAtor and I fought about it afterwards because he said, why the hell did you cut $10,000 more than what I understood? And I thought it was going to be 610. I said, you know, so that's my bad. Not going to argue that. But the fact of the matter is we dropped it down from 639 in 14 to $600,000 in 15. So, and we had that same exact circumstance where a very high-step officer left, and there was a difference of nearly $38,000 at that time. So I just want to let it can be done, you know.
and the other thing we've done, just to piggyback off of that, even though we're dropping it, in this new police contract that we settled this year, we added a lot more steps. So now as the officers progress, they're not as large as they used to be going from year to year. So we are saving a little bit of money. So if we anticipated maybe a $10,000 increase every year because of officers moving up through the steps, that's not there anymore, at least not to that extent. And we knew that we would be hiring, you know, younger officers. They come in at 51,000. It's going to take them, we have 9 steps now. So it's taking a lot longer to max out. So it stretches our money out a little bit. You know. Again, I think the chief and I are in agreement that we can definitely help out with this. And we'll have more discussion. I'd like to have more discussion with you, but I think we can do better.
If you do that with the change of officer amount, you change the contract, you change the budget by about 2 cents, and put the police department back on that inch that happened last year, it was over by $12,000. But if that's what you want to do,
But,
okay.
well, think
Well,
about
is the
it.
alternative to just take everyone's money, just in case we need it? I mean, that's really not the way to operate either. I mean, we could ask people to just give us so much extra money, and they're gonna trust us not to find a way to use it. I mean, the idea is to use it for what we need it. And, you know, as long as we're close, if we go, you know, something's over a little bit, under a little bit, that's probably the right place to be, as opposed to being over.
The extra officer is, I guess that based upon,
When you talk about extra officer, you know, we hired a class 2 special. And if I think we look back, I think we had a limit on how much we were going to spend for specials in total anyway, which I think we set at $15,000. So none of that's changed. And if you look at what we spent last year in the $612,000, that includes special officers and, you know, 2 officers that we use quite regularly.
Right, I
So,
think.
I don't think you're going to see a drastic increase in special officers, or, you know, it's not like we hired them.
In 2015, we probably used close to $15,000 or $18,000 on the 2 special officers that we had that are now retired.
well, how much is the feeling, how much do you want to take out of that line?
I would have to defer to the commissioner and the chief. Is that something you want to look at? Is it? So you, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that I would ask any department head right now to come up with a quick number unless they can accurately take a look. at what their needs are and the needs that they don't need. I mean, I have no problem with having another budget meeting in a couple of weeks or so. I mean, you've done everything that we've asked you for, so there's nothing that's gonna change other than the fact that, Councilman Fitzgerald's gonna say, you know, Mr. Mooney, we looked at this, we visited this, what is the new number now?
Right.
And that's all up to the finance chair to communicate with the CFO, and all we can do right now as department heads, and I think everybody will agree, is give back Councilman Fitzgerald your opinions, where you want to be.
You know, I think just going along with what everybody's saying, like how much do you want to cut out of that particular line? I think you have an excellent CFO here who is an invaluable resource to your town. And I think sitting down with her and finding out where she came up with the 665 from, and then going in depth with that and seeing, all right, is there something we can take here and there? And then that'll put you in a better position to know exactly what you're going to need and what you should be asking for in that line item.
I have a question coming from a different direction.
Sure.
I'm looking at the anticipated revenues, and there's a gap here.
Yes.
Right, yeah, we got 75,000.
I'd like to fill in those blanks.
Okay. With your budget, whenever you receive money for grants, if you don't do what's called a Chapter 159 to bring it in that year, the money sits in a pot and then can get utilized in the next year. Okay, so let's say you received a grant last year in 15. You did a Chapter 9, you picked 159, you brought it into your budget, you have it in as a revenue and an expense, so they offset each other. If you didn't do the 159, it carries into 2016. All right, because those grants offset one another, you know, your revenue offsets your expense, we haven't put in the grants either on the revenue side or the expenditure side because they have no impact to your tax rate whatsoever. So once all of the budget is coming to completion, then we can go back and look at the sheet and see where you're at with your grants, and we'll plug those grants in. And again, they have no impact as to anything, so we just leave them off to keep them, you know, less errors. The more numbers you put on, the more it can go wrong.
And I had talked to John earlier about a couple things for the sewer budget to make sure that we include enough. There's a sewer rate assessment that we should have been doing every 4 years.
There's a sewer rate study, we've done 2 now since we've been here in town. Those don't need to be done on an annual basis. When you feel the need, you know, if you think that you're tight on your sewer rents and you need a study done to make sure that you're charging with what your expenses are, that's when we come back and we can offer the service for that. I believe the last one was done 4 or 5 years ago. And the other portion of that is your connection fee. All right, so when a new line goes in, the connection goes to the house, you have a connection fee. The study for that, unfortunately, needs to be done on an annual basis. You can't step away for 10 years and then say, okay, now I'm going to do one this year and here's your number. You have to look at each year going forward. And the number is based off of last year plus your capital needs. There's more that goes into that. So that's another option. We've never done one since we've been here. And I believe we've been here a little over 10 years now. So that one could be a tougher project to go all the way back and then do each year coming forward. The sewer rate study is a little different. So, and to answer your email question, the cost associated with the connection fee study is in the same range. However, you know, the initial one would be, I believe it was, I had it written down, I believe it was $3,500 to $5,500.
Yeah, I have that.
And then it would be $500 to $1,000 per year going forward. So if we started out with 2005, you know, there's your base charge because we have to get the model put together. Once the model's together, then we start dropping in the numbers year after year. And you have that whole learning curve, so it's going to take us less time to do 16 than it would to do 2006. You know, it's just a lot of research to go back and see where things were back then.
Just want to make sure that
Sure.
we do what we're supposed to do.
John, I just had one other question.
Sure.
I spoke to you on the phone about a taxpayer sent me an email, and his question was, what portion of our sewer utility bill qualifies as a local benefit tax?
Zero. And the difference between paying your taxes and paying a sewer or a water charge is that your sewer and water charge are called rents. All right, so when you pay your sewer bill, it's your sewer bill. When you pay your taxes, they're your taxes. I talked to the IRS woman in my office specifically about this, and that's the delineation. You're paying taxes on one, you're paying rents on the other. So you can't, you put your taxes on your tax return. You can't put your sewer charges for the year on your tax return. So that's the differences between rents and taxes.
And I explained that to the individual, and he came back later on saying, years ago, a certain percentage was factored in. HMUA was factored in because it was a benefit tax because it was a debt service or something at that time.
That's not ringing any bell. I'm not a tax guy, but
Okay.
I've lived in places where we've had electric utilities and we've had MUAs, and I never was able to deduct any of that off my taxes. I wish I can quote code, but I can't. It's just not my area.
All right, I got more homework, I guess.
Well, I can find out. I can get the code.
Any other questions for Mr. Mooney or Mr. Fitzgerald?
I'll just throw this question out there. I know because of the consolidated municipal court, the budget is roughly doubled on operating expense. Is there a way we're offsetting that somehow? It might not be reflected here, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, you were actually anticipated the revenue from the court for half of the year.
Correct.
Is that in?
That's in the revenue.
Well, the municipal court revenue is flat from last year to this year. I guess that's
Have a
what.
look at the new court where it says shared court.
Couple lines
We have
there.
a separate line, it says shared court.
It says shared court.
Oh, I'm sorry, it says Harmony.
Harmony Township Joint Court. Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
It says joint court, which is an error. It should say shared. We don't want that to be a misunderstanding, because that makes a big difference. Joint to shared.
I thought it was joint.
We're shared. So they're flat. Once they've signed that contract, John, that's one revenue's coming in for 3 years, and we know exactly what it's gonna be, as well as what fee we charge them. None of this will change. It's not joint, it's shared. Will that make a difference?
It makes a difference because if you're a joint court, then you assume the costs of the court,
That's correct.
and there's no additional cost because what you're saying is this is what it's costing us to run it. We're just going to run everybody else
That's
through it.
right, but this is shared.
If it's shared, you potentially take those revenue and offset that with an expenditure outside the cap, and then you would pull down what's inside the cap. Inside the cap is basically what it costs you to run your town on a day-to-day basis. You have a line item of municipal court that has $68,000 in salary and $13,000 in other expenses. If we're talking that that's going to be a shared court, and I have to do a little homework on that, that $16,750 and that $5,750 could potentially be pulled out of there.
That's correct. I
And
thought it looked very high, that 13,000 for operating. Isn't that correct, 13 for operating, or no?
Yeah, that's what it is.
I thought in speaking with Dawn, she said, oh, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 above what she normally did.
But she didn't account for it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to look into that and get back to you on that.
Another question.
Yes.
Probably to
Okay.
if I may. I was trying to write and listen at the same time. You did mention something at the beginning about the sewer and some numbers, and I kind of missed.
Last year, you brought in a revenue of $40,000 from the sewer fund.
Right.
Sewer had a surplus, you used $40,000 of that surplus to help you balance last year's budget. This year, we weren't taking that because you don't want to go to that well too much, and you might have sewer projects ongoing that might need capital money. So rather than bring that money back into the current fund, keep it in sewer in case you have projects to do down the line that have capital needs.
All right, so the 40,000 surplus was to help balance the budget.
Correct. And that's a perfect example of a one-time revenue, that when you pull that one-time revenue out, you have to fill it in the following year with something. All right, so that 40,000,
It has to be brought back in.
well, you have to raise it somehow. Part of, filling that revenue is being used with the joint courts. You're replacing $40,000, you have to replace it with something,
Right.
to keep the tax rate level. And you're bringing in, money that's gonna be recurring, so you're in a decent spot with that. You don't wanna keep bringing it in and then losing it all at once, because then you have a bucket to fill in the following year. That's why one-time revenues, you try to stay away from. Same thing with, you'll notice that there's another revenue line on there for reserve for sale of municipal assets. Assets were sold, it was sitting in an account on the balance sheet, and we brought that $9,000 in to help balance the budget next year, or last year. That money's gone now, because you used it to balance the budget, so now you have to figure out where you're gonna come up with that next piece from.
Okay, so that's, helping with that,
Sure.
try to understand, where did it come from?
I believe trucks were sold, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, and you received money for the sale of assets that you held. What we like to do, and we've done this in several towns, it's worked really great, is we set up what's called a reserve for sale of municipal assets. So that in 1 year, I have Washington, who sold their municipal building. They made something like $800,000 off the sale. They put that money in this reserve for sale of assets, and when they needed a piece of equipment for the DPW, rather than raise it through taxation or go out and bond for it, they just brought some of that money into the budget that year and paid one-time expenses out of that. $9,500 is rather small, and it's not gonna make or break you going 1 year to the next, but we brought that in as a revenue last year for you.
Okay. So in other words, like the sale of a garbage truck, which was, I don't know how many years ago, but that'd be something that'd be brought in under
Typically,
assets
correct.
and then put somewhere.
And that would, right, and you can either use that to help bring down your tax rate, or you can leave it there and use it for a one-time item where you don't have to increase tax or go out for bonding.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Mooney or Mr. Fitzgerald? Is Thursdays good days? Well, first of all, let me thank Mr. Mooney, John, Al, Andrew, thank you very much. Christine, thank you as always. I'm sure you'll get some calls, quite a bit from Dennis. Tentatively, is Thursdays good for everybody? I have Thursday, March 17th available, and Thursday, March 24th available.
Seventeenth is St. Patrick's Day, but
Yeah.
you know, it's there for that. I might be like
Get
this.
Get rid of that. Get rid of that. March 24th.
17th doesn't work for me then, but
March 24th?
I'm good,
24th is good for them.
I'm good 24th.
Good. Mr. Fitzgerald? 24th? Wall?
Yeah.
Kathy?
March 24th.
March 24th.
So what
Time,
time?
Joe, 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, same time? I encourage everybody to get back to Councilman Fitzgerald as quickly as you can.
Sorry,
On the 24th, do you expect it to be about an hour, hour and a half?
At the most.
Okay, so it's
At the
fine.
most,
Okay.
and I think by that time.
I just have a 7:30 meeting.
Mr. Fitzgerald will make a decision as to where, if he really thinks he needs you, you know, to come.
Oh, that's even better.
We'll leave that in his hands.
I said that out loud, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
So did I.
Okay.
So everybody get back to Councilman Fitzgerald as quickly as you can, please. Take from this the thought where you feel we should be as far as reevaluation. Councilman Miller will be bringing us up to date with that. Again, there's a difference between assessment and reevaluation. I think this town is in a point now where it needs to be reevaluated, not reassessed. Reassessed is not going to bring us any place if people just walk around the outside of properties and they don't know what people did on the inside of their houses. My opinion, as always my opinion, I think that we've gone 20 years plus without a reevaluation. And there's an unequal balance here to a lot of taxpayers that I think we need to take a look at.
Yeah, sure.
And I know Mr. Benbrook is very knowledgeable on this. So is Mr. Evans. He also mentioned a program where it could be spread out over time. The only thing that, again, my opinion only, if you're going to do a reevaluation, do it all at one time. I wouldn't, I personally am not in favor of doing District 1, 1 year, District 2, because what you're going to do is you're going to go through a 3-year process of doing this reevaluation. You actually won't achieve your reevaluation until year 4 or so, when everything is done. Like you told us last time, the process takes almost a year.
Sure, yeah,
To
no.
get all the information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to mention about the Carl meeting?
Yes. We had a meeting yesterday, myself, Teresa, Mr. Benbrook, the attorney, and Paul Sturbins. We are going to need to add $5,000 in legal cost to the agenda, and that's not a guess number, it's going to be pretty close to that. That will bring us pretty close to a number on COA and the affordable housing units that we're going to have. That's in the hands of, I guess, Judge Miller, you may be aware of.
Yes, I saw this yesterday with Washington as well.
Right.
They received a letter where they needed to have 2 COA funds with $5,000 apiece in each one.
Exactly.
Is that the same situation that you're
Yes,
in?
you have to have an escrow.
We have to
or
have an
separate-
escrow.
We'll have a separate escrow. We added the $10,000 to the legal line because technically that's paying legal bills.
Correct.
Only they want you to establish 2 new trust funds for COA legal expenses.
We indeed did have an option that we could pull out if we wanted to, but under their advisement, they felt it was better off that we wait, at least through this process, correct?
At least until the judge, they anticipate the judge coming up with, for lack of a better term, a formula for calculation of our affordable housing units by sometime this summer, late summer. So we would at least need to hang until there, we thought anyway, that was their advice and mayor's thought. So with that, they're mandating, to pay for these special masters that they've appointed to work with the judge, they've mandated that you have to escrow this
Right.
$5,000.
And it's $5,000 for each.
Well, now, Kevin Benbrook told us 5,000, so maybe because we're small, I'll double check,
Yes, please.
yes.
And if you have a copy of the legal,
I have a copy of
Document.
the legal opinion, I didn't read it
Okay.
because that's why I have an attorney.
if you send me a copy of it, I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Anything else?